Welcome. Thank you for being here on time and ready to go. Our goal in this video is to demonstrate the process of unpacking a standard so that you and your team can discern the most important things that students will need to be successful in their learning. Unpacking a standard is a lot like opening a box. Inside, you're going to find some verbs and nouns along with some instructions. Some assembly may be required. Now, the nouns in our standards will tell us what the students need to know. The verbs in our standards will help us understand what students need to do to show what they know. Those nouns and verbs will be essential in writing learning targets and helping students be successful. For this work, you will need the list of nouns and verbs as well as the unpacking template. So, without further ado, gather your team, choose your standard, and let's start unpacking.
First thing, right here, first step that we do is we need to identify the essential verbs and the essential nouns, the skills and the concepts that the standard is asking. And when we're talking about that, it's what are the students able to know? That's going to be the nouns. And what are the students able to do? That will be the verbs. What is the first verb we notice?
I would say cite.
Cite. So what would the next verb be?
Make.
Make. So we're going to keep
So I
our
should
mind.
type cite here.
Correct.
Okay.
And then a comma.
Comma and make.
And make. That's our two verbs. This is what we want students to do. We want them to be able to cite and we want them to be able to make. That's it. What do we want them to cite is now going to go down here in the nouns. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to underline that. So, for example, the first one, we want them to cite textual evidence, and we're going to just underline it. So what are we going to make?
Logical
And so we're going to underline logical inferences.
Okay.
We need them to know what text is, right? We need them to cite evidence that strongly supports. So where are you thinking this one should go?
They need to understand what it means to find text evidence that strongly supports something. Does that make sense? So I think of it more as a concept than an essential skill. Like,
right, because they have to decipher,
right.
Is this a weak piece of evidence
to
or a
reason
strong
it.
piece of evidence?
And I'm thinking citing as our main one, and that's what we do from there. It should be more of underneath the nouns.
Mm-hmm.
Or the
Okay.
concept type ideas.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's great. So as the team, we place it where we believe it fits best. So we're going to move over here now to the second step. So we're going to look at these and decide in this standard, what level do we need them to be able to know this? And we're going to look at these verbs and decide which one would make the most sense. So do we want to explain text evidence, understand it, describe it, identify text evidence? You know, how do we want to do it in order to cite text evidence?
So I underlined the word select because
Okay.
I'm not sure, or it has to be more than recognition, because if they are going to be able to, back it up, you have to select it.
The end goal is I want them to be able to select text evidence. So then in order to select it, what do they have to know?
I'm looking at the word locate. They're going to have to know where to locate that. It's very similar to select.
If you can explain or describe it, then that tells
Right.
me you understand it.
Yeah. Because I don't like understand, because we need to, I don't know, I feel like they have to be able to let us know somehow. So if they can't do it that way, we have to be able to, coach them through the process of understanding it, and then they have to be able to explain it back.
Yeah, that's
to us.
exactly how I'm thinking of it.
And when I think about analyzing, I think of it being a little bit higher level than like just understanding. It's actually, there's, a little bit more of a like pull with your brain going on, happening when you're analyzing. So I agree with that.
So
Explain.
Explain sounds good.
Our team spent 35 more minutes discussing different nouns and verbs related to this standard. We found that when we pull a key concept like text evidence out of the standard, the questions that arise about the verbs are absolutely essential. Students will need to define what text evidence is as part of understanding it. They'll also need to recall it and select it as they transition from citing into summarizing. If your team discussions seem to be running a little long, we urge you to persevere. Take the time to hear out your team members. The verbs you choose create the opportunities for students to show what they know, and it will profoundly impact the rigor of their learning experiences. In the end, our team decided that it was essential for students to select textual evidence, find evidence that best justifies an inference, and connect background knowledge to what the text says. As you go through this process, remember to ask a lot of questions, be open to surprises, and thank you for your work helping to unpack our standards.